There's so much going on in the transfer window at the moment that actually it's quite easy to forget about some really important bits of business that I think we still need to do that no one is talking about. So I'm going to talk about them today, along with all the latest transfer news in this episode of Transfers Unfiltered. Let's get started. Yes, hello and welcome back to another episode of Arsenal Unfiltered, your 3 times a week dose of Arsenal coverage with me, your host Mark. This specifically is an episode of Transfers Unfiltered, so we're going to be talking through key bits from the transfer window, all the rumours that are going around and everything that you need to know to keep up to date with those rumours, plus all of my opinions on that. So I'm going to take you through what's about to happen, what has happened, a couple of rumours, my feelings on those, but then as you heard at the top, I'm going to talk about, in the second half, I'm going to talk about 3 bits of business that I feel like we've just forgotten about, or certainly it's not being reported on, and I find it very strange that we don't even have a sniff of information about these 3 bits of business, because they're really, really important. They are just as important in my eyes as getting a left winger in, as getting the striker in. They're all we seem to be hearing about, but we've forgotten these really 3 important pieces of business. So I will tell you about them in the second half today. Let's start though. Let's start with hoping that everyone is well wherever you are, and sending you my best wishes. Thank you so much for clicking on this podcast, and thank you for listening. If you're a returning listener, that's absolutely brilliant. But if you're new here as well, here at Arsenal Unfiltered, it's an Arsenal opinion show. I like to bring my opinion and speak to other Arsenal fans who are just in love with the club and a bit tired of mainstream media coverage of Arsenal. So if that's you, stick around, maybe hit that follow button wherever you get your podcast from, and you'll get 3 episodes every single week straight into your podcast provider. Okay, let's get going then. Christian Mosquera, the heir apparent to William Saliba, the backup for him, the new man in our Herculean defence. This guy, it sounds like he has made Arsenal his absolute priority. We know now that Arsenal are not just interested and have made a bid and have had personal terms kind of agreed. We know now that Valencia actually came back with an offer to him to say, stay, and he rejected it outright. He just rejected it outright. I think that was Fabrizio Romano who originally reported that. He is not interested in staying at Valencia, and it seems like the 20-year-old is on his way out. Arsenal are going to have to negotiate the price, though. The first bid was rejected, so look, we're going to have to work on that a little bit more. That's one that I'm not worried about the timing on that one. If that was something that went all the way till the end of August, I wouldn't really mind, because for me, I think it's highly likely that we will be able to cope in that first period of the season with the defenders that we already have. We've got Timber, Ben White, Saliba on that side. Yes, we need another long term, but I'm sure we are able to cope until the end of August. So that's one for me. Get your absolute best deal you can. We don't need to rush that through. And let's just keep working on that. Andrea Berta, he will be driving a hard bargain, I'm sure, and that's what I would be hoping for. Yesterday, of course, we had the announcement. I was hoping and expecting that we'd have the Martin Zubimendi announcement. We didn't. We might get that today. I'm really excited to get that in, because it just feels like it's been going on since January, hasn't it? So it's been a really long time we've been talking about Martin Zubimendi. Maybe we'll get Norgard as the announcement first, but I think it's most likely to be Zubimendi. But yesterday's announcement was Chloe Kelly in for the women's team. Fantastic news. It was obviously a massive part of the Champions League triumph last year, and came in January from Manchester City. She granted Arsenal a period of exclusivity before talking to any other clubs, and that period of exclusivity, it's been exploited for Arsenal. We have got our player. Chloe Kelly will be a permanent Arsenal player, and I think that's really, really good news, not just for the club but for her personally. She was close to taking a break from football before she came to Arsenal, and obviously the environment is much better for her. I don't really know the ins and outs of what was going on at Manchester City, what was going so wrong, and what changed at Arsenal, but delighted for her and delighted for the women's team that we have a really, really high quality player in there, and someone who clearly fits the group and works really, really well with Renee Slagers. So absolutely delighted on that front. So that announcement's been done. Like I say, Zubimendi and Norgard hopefully soon. And unfortunately, guys, the vague reporting cycle for Eberechi Eze's begun. Obviously, when we first got news about that was a few days ago now. We first got that news that there is concrete interest from Arsenal, but unfortunately, we are now into that cycle of they've made contact, they're advancing, they're monitoring, and I am getting really tired of these non-updates that we're getting about players. We're getting a lot about Sesko and Gyökeres, and now I think we are going to start getting it about Eberechi Eze as well. It's clear that Arsenal want to do a deal below the release clause, and I'm just going to say this about the Ornstein tweet as well, by the way. I find it really strange that Arsenal would be looking at Eze and a left winger and a striker. I find that very odd, and I wonder if there is just a standout left winger candidate, and I think that probably is Rodrigo. And I wonder, is there a world where Arsenal are looking at this and saying, okay, we will get Eze in, plus, one of the two very top targets for the left winger spot, and if we can't get those guys, Eze can do both of those jobs anyway. So I wonder if it's, yes, they're looking at three attackers, but they're only looking at, the very highest quality left wingers plus Eze. So if they can't get, let's say it is Rodrigo, if they can't get Rodrigo, they'll settle for just Eze. Of course, we have heard rumours about the right winger, Madueke. I'll come on to that in a second. But I think almost Madueke sounds like another versatile attacker in that sense. I don't think it makes any sense to be paying that amount of money for a player who would be right wing backup to Bukayo Saka and get in the way of Ethan Nwaneri's development. There's a lot going on in the forward line rumours at the moment for Arsenal, and I just think we do not have the full picture. For me, when I heard there's a rumour, I was like, great, I think he will move out to that left-hand side when we are playing low blocks. Because I've seen a lot of people say, well, he's a 10 for Palace. And yeah, I get that, but he is a left-sided 10. He plays on that side of the pitch. But also, when you're against a low block, wingers don't really play as wingers, do they? Not that typical flying winger who is exploiting space in behind and running at pace, because low blocks don't really give you that, unfortunately. They don't give you those options. Eze is not slow, he's not rapid, but he's not slow, but he is fantastic over that kind of change of direction, 3 to 5 yards. He's fantastic at that kind of element of the game. And I think when I heard about him as a left wing option, I thought, okay, that makes sense, because we are going to play a lot of low blocks. We are going to need that player to do 10 things, 10 style things, but in the left wing slot, as it were. So I am finding it very strange that we're talking about Eze plus another on the left side. But for me, like I say, it could be that there is just an elite left winger target, and that they're saying we'll get Eze and Rodrigo if we can get Rodrigo, but we're not going to go too far down the left wing list because Eze can do it as well. Rodrigo continues not to play at the Club World Cup, of course. It's all very interesting. We don't know for facts. I think at points we're reading way too much into this. On one hand, it could just be that he's not there yet in terms of what Xabi Alonso wants from him. It could just be that there is a decision being made to kind of work with him tactically more before getting him out into the system. It could just be that right now it's not the right time for him to be playing those minutes. There's been a long season, and actually it does make sense for Real Madrid to use some of those players who've not played quite as much in the season. I don't know. You just don't know what his personal fitness is like, what his personal sharpness is like, where his head's at with all the rumours. So whether him not playing means Real Madrid are gearing up to sell him, I don't know. But I guess on the other hand, it also doesn't mean that they're like, this guy is absolutely 100% in our plans, we need to figure this out straight away. There is clearly some doubt there. There's something going on, which is meaning that they're not playing him. So lots to think about. I said I'd come on to the Madueke rumours. I mentioned I find it bizarre to spend that amount of money on a player who would get in the way of Ethan Nwaneri's development and potentially, be a lot of an expenditure just to sit behind Bukayo Saka. Like I say, I think he could be one of the quote-unquote versatile attackers that Arsenal are looking at, in the sense that he can play both wings. And it does feel like Arsenal are probably looking for a third winger, isn't it? And we talk about left and right wingers, but I think they're probably saying we've got Bukayo Saka on the left, on the right, we've got Martinelli on the left, and then they're looking for a Rodrigo, a Madueke, a Nico Williams. Of course, he's going to Barca, but that was a big target, who they think can do a job on both sides. They can do a job on both sides, and I think that's a really interesting development and really interesting kind of idea, because Ethan Nwaneri will probably pick up minutes on the right wing next year, so they're probably quite happy with that. Obviously, they've got Trossard as well. They probably just want another really top-level winger to make a group of three with Saka and Martinelli that they think are that end stage of the Champions League quality and can be rotated in and out in the really crunchy games. I think Madueke probably can play off the left. He plays predominantly off the right, but he is a player who has lots and lots of talent and is still very young, has lots of development room to go. So something that could be coached into him. So as with Eze, where Eze can kind of play some central roles and the left side, and then they're looking at Madueke as someone who can play right wing, left wing. Same with Rodrigo, right wing, left wing. And I don't love it. I don't. I think the amount of money that we probably have to pay, you have to be at least competing for a first choice spot. And I don't think he'd compete with Saka. I don't think Arsenal fans would like that at all. And I think with him being predominantly left-footed, putting him as competing with Martinelli on the left, I don't think that really fits Mikel Arteta's tactical plan. So for me, I really hope we don't sign Noni Madueke. If we do, I will support him. Of course I will. But I don't think he is the guy for us. Okay, let's take a short break. And when I come back, I'm going to talk about those three bits of business that Arsenal seem to have forgotten about, like I said at the start and on the title of this episode. Don't go anywhere. Sorry for interrupting everyone, but I am on a mission and I need your help. I'm trying to get Arsenal Unfiltered into the ears of as many people as possible, and the best way that you can help me do that is by going and leaving a 5-star review wherever you get your podcasts at. That really helps me grow the podcast and allows more people to hear the Arsenal Unfiltered coverage 3 times a week. So if you would be so kind to go and leave a review wherever you get your podcast from, I would really appreciate it. Thank you so much. Welcome back to Arsenal Unfiltered. This is an episode of Transfers Unfiltered. In the first half, you heard a summary of all the key stories that are going around about Arsenal's transfer business at the moment. And now I'm going to talk about the 3 bits of business that I think we've forgotten about. Or at least if we haven't forgotten about them, there is no reporting on them, which makes me a little bit nervous. I'm going to go from what I think is the least important one, even though it's still important, all the way up to the most important one, which, I think Arsenal fans will be nervous about if we don't hear some news or some reporting very soon. The first one is, how are we replacing Carlos Cuesta? We really have seen nothing about this, and we talk a lot about getting players in, getting players settled so that they can do their best work and get them ready for the start of the season. Surely that's got to be very similar, not the same because they don't have the fitness demands, of course, but very similar for the coaching group. The coaching group are with them every single day, and we saw from the Amazon documentary, Carlos Cuesta's role is so important when it comes to sitting down with players, taking them through individual bits, really analysing their individual performances and showing them, this is what you could have done better, this is what you're doing fantastically, keep doing that, We've lost him. He's gone to Parma for a manager job. I think the youngest manager in Serie A history, so congratulations to him. Who are we going for? What are we going for? An experienced winner, someone who's been around it, done it. City have just added Pep Linders to their coaching team, which I think is a fantastic idea, by the way. Fair play to them. I kind of wish we'd done that. But he's gone to their coaching team and will be supporting Pep Guardiola. He is bringing a really different side to the game, having worked under Jurgen Klopp for so many years. He will be bringing that perspective to Pep Guardiola. This is a massive opportunity for Arsenal, and I don't think we can underestimate this. Some people will be going, oh, who cares? It's just a coach. Don't worry about it. But we've seen more and more the growing influence of these kind of secondary coaches. Obviously, everyone talks about the set-piece coaches. Nicolas Jova is ours, but we've seen Keith Andrews was a set piece coach, and he now has a full-time job at Brentford, the manager job. We're seeing those coaches grow in kind of reputation and stature. We're seeing, I mean, for us it's Albert Steinberg, but now we've got Linders at Manchester City. And Linders at Liverpool when we focused on them as well. There's lots more influence for these guys, lots more, and I just think there is a really important point here of what do Arsenal need right now in terms of players, but what do they need in terms of coaches to go with that? And I do think, we're not looking at players who have been there and won it all. Take Rodrigo out of it. Eze has won the FA Cup once, and only just done it. We've got Sesko and Gyökeres. Gyökeres has won trophies in Portugal, of course, but, it's not the big ticket items with the international focus like the Premier League will have. Sesko hasn't really won anything. Mosquera not won anything. We're not looking at bringing in serial winners here. And we've just lost Jorginho, who was one of our serial winners. So is the coaching spot an opportunity to bring in someone who's been there, done it, knows how to get a group over the line? I think it is, and I think we need to sort that Carlos Cuesta replacement quite quickly, because if it is going to be an experienced head, a winner, someone who knows how to get over the line at the Premier League, well, we want them in and ready for day one of the Premier League, don't we? And there's always that kind of embedding period into a new environment. They might have to work a period of notice at wherever they're coming from. So I find it odd that we've not heard anything about it. I accept it's not going to be front page news, right? But I do think I want to hear a little bit about it pretty soon. The other thing I want to hear a little bit about is selling some of our loan players. This is the second piece of business I think Arsenal seem to have not been doing anything about. We've only really heard a rumour about Zinchenko going out, obviously apart from Thomas Partey and Jorginho, who have been released. But actually, we need to get some money back for these players. And people don't like talking about money. I get that. That's kind of boring. But I think the massive point here is we need to make sure the group is together very early on. And I don't mean physically together. I mean everyone who's on that training pitch knows that they're there for a reason, knows that they are there to try and win the Premier League this season, and they're not thinking about their future. They're not worried about, well, where am I going? Because I promise you, that start to the season, not only is it tough, but it sets a tone, right? And if we can lay some punches early doors, I think that would be a really, really strong statement of intent from us, especially laying one on Liverpool and Manchester City. I think it would be really, really important. Whether we can do that or not is dependent on a perfect pre-season, in my opinion. And having players like Karl Hein, Albert Sambi Lokonga, Fabio Vieira, Reiss Nelson back in the group, I'm not questioning their professionalism, but you've got to admit, if you think you are going away from the squad, if you think you're going to be sold, that's going to be maybe a distraction for you. And we don't want distractions in the group at any point. I accept that Arsenal are not necessarily going to get them all out of the door before they go to Asia for the pre-season tour. But look, we're not heard any interest about them, and I really don't want us to be in the position where we're in the last week of August desperately trying to get these guys out of the building, because one, for their careers, Karl Hein is a player who he probably is not going to make it at Arsenal, especially not with Kepa coming in now, actually. But he's had a really good season at Real Valladolid, and I think there will be people in for him. Lokonga and Vieira looking to revive their careers, and Reiss Nelson, before he got injured at Fulham, looked like he really had something there at that kind of level in the Premier League. So they've got things that they need personally. We owe it to those guys, especially Reiss Nelson, who I think has been a really good servant for Arsenal and has scored one of the most famous goals in the Emirates era, of course. We need to be thinking about their careers. We need to be thinking about not having this panic and all this noise around the club come the end of August, trying to get these guys out. And we need to think about the group and the pre-season group, making sure that is as tailored as possible so that we are ready come the season. But the big one, number 3, the most important piece of business that we're not hearing anything about at all. And I'm not worried, but I am starting to get a little twitchy on it. Saka and Saliba's contracts. Now the Gabriel contract's done. The Miles Lewis-Skelly contract is done. We've got some other contract stuff going on. As you heard before, we're trying to get Zinchenko out the door before his goes. There was the Trossard speak at the start of the summer where, he might get an upgraded wage, but not necessarily a big extension on his contract. That seems to have stalled. There's a lot of contract stuff going on alongside all of the transfer stuff. but we've not heard a sniff about Saka or Saliba's contracts, and that has me worried just a little bit. Because, when we were talking about the MLS contract, I think about 2 or 3 weeks before that was officially announced and signed, we started to hear, okay, these talks are going well, this is going to come out soon. I really want these done. I don't want us going into the season with any sort of chat about, he's only got 2 years left. If he waits this season out, will Arsenal have to sell? All of that sort of stuff. I don't want that. Especially around Saliba. I think Saka's probably a more sure thing. Saliba is the one. We know there's big Real Madrid interest. We know how Real Madrid like to operate. If we get into the season and maybe start poorly or something like that, or get knocked out of the Cups early, or have a bad run in the Champions League, anything like that could happen pre-Christmas, you know who is going to be on the phone to William Saliba's agents. Is going to be Real Madrid, right? They're going to be on the phone and going, you don't seem to be having a great season there. 2027, do you want to join us? And I think it would just be much, much healthier if we got those contracts sorted. I know there's tons to do, and I know the incoming players are perhaps a bigger priority right now. And maybe all of this stuff is going on in the background, and we don't know about it because the reporting for the other bits and bobs is absolutely just taking precedent. I think that's probably very, very likely, but it just makes me a little twitchy that we've not heard even a sniff about these contracts. You've got to remember, you can bring in the Sescos and the Rodrigos all you want, but if you lose William Saliba, that's an irreplaceable player in my book. It's a problem Liverpool are about to have. They're going to lose Van Dijk at some point in the future, whether that's to him aging, retiring, going somewhere else to finish his career off for a final different experience. They're going to lose him. And he is irreplaceable. They are going to have a really difficult period where they have to work something else out. Perhaps the same with Mohamed Salah when he goes from Liverpool. I think City are probably going to have it this year. Well, I'm going to say last year they had it with Kevin De Bruyne because they didn't really have him available much of last year at all. Every club goes through this with their very, very best players when they leave for a fee or not for a fee, when they retire, anything like that. When they're just injured for a long time, they are irreplaceable. And William Saliba is that for us. And I just think we need to get this sorted so that if a bad start were to happen, we don't have Real Madrid in his ear going, look, you're not that far away from being able to join us for not much money, and we'll give you a lot of money, by the way. So I really want us to get that going and just let's just hear something about it. Arsenal, I think, I don't think they leak much at all. It's been very smoke and mirrors this summer. There's been lots of vague information, nothing super concrete. We used to get lots of concrete information, didn't we? There's been a lot of vagaries around the strikers and the wingers, especially as Arsenal play the game, play the dark arts, as it were. But for this one, maybe just leak us something, please, guys. That would be absolutely fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. Okay, guys, that is my 3 bits of business that Arsenal seem to have forgotten about. Who is replacing Carlos Cuesta? How are we getting those players who have been out on loan out of the club full time, and how are we renewing Bukayo Saka and William Saliba? Like I said at the start, this is an Arsenal show all about Arsenal. I love to give my opinion on it and maybe debate with you guys. So find me on Blue Sky if you disagree with anything that I've said today, or you agree with anything. It's Arsenal-Unfiltered at bluesky.social.com. And let's have a debate, connect on there. Love to chat to you all, and leave a review wherever you get your podcast from as well. That's really, really helpful. The weekend episode will be coming out this weekend, probably on Saturday, and that will be on YouTube as well, so keep an eye out for that. We're doing the YouTube content to bring graphics and more detail into these videos and these analysis and these opinion pieces. So if you love Arsenal, if you are tired of the mainstream media coverage of our club and want to hear something that's done by someone who really, really does know the club, stick around and make sure you subscribe and listen to Arsenal Unfiltered. Okay, guys, all that's left to say is thank you for following, thank you for listening, and I'll speak to you very, very soon.